Barcelona.
And at like 5'10".
Yes. Yep. Okay.
All right, here we are.
Here we are. Welcome, everyone. I'm sitting here between two fellow new men, Skya and Michael.
And this is
And
our
Trevor.
friend Trevor Spring.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we decided about 6 weeks ago that we needed to come together to discuss this topic because I think we're all passionate about defining, exploring, realizing this new expression of whole masculinity. And these brothers are powerful ones to explore with and share from. And I just feel really held by sitting in this container that we've created. I do feel a little nervous because this is a big topic and it could go a million different directions.
Yeah.
And it's our first time. So
let's see it as like an opening, because
Yeah.
I think we all see that this is going to be a continuing conversation, and I think we both feel that our friendship is that as well. It's like there's such a purpose to it. It feels like such an opening that's happening.
Topic of conversation that's been ongoing with us three and others, and it's just like so magical and
Yeah.
exciting to put it out there for others having that same conversation.
So what do we mean by the new man? What does that mean?
you could do free word association. Less, I like what you said earlier, less gripping, more open-handedness, more open hand-holdingness.
Less forceful, more allowing.
Just allowing yourself to be new, seeing what hasn't served you, what hasn't served men, and the dynamic we've been in for a while.
On a lot of levels, personally, culturally.
Right.
Yeah.
Where our culture is at right now, based on a lot of that old dynamic.
Yeah, and we throw words around like the patriarchy and toxic masculinity and things like that, which is really just looking at the shadow aspects of masculinity and of being a man. And I love the work that you and Elisa share, because it's so much about accepting those shadows that we all have. So if I can do that, if I can recognize that those shadows are a part of me and my journey, then I don't have to be thinking, oh, those people over there are doing it wrong. Those, politicians and those, jerks who, are doing mean things. Like, I can't point the finger out there when I'm realizing that these are shadows that are part
We're all
of
doing
me.
it.
Yeah.
We're all doing
We're all
it.
and we're all been in our culture seeing some signs of the extreme of toxic masculinity, and you can take that to be a little bit grateful to see that example and see where that goes to that extreme.
Yeah, and this feels like a powerful exploration for me. As like I would say, to consolidate it, one of my main goals, just to shake up masculinity and the definitions and expand the definitions of it, and help us all to realize in our own way how we've limited ourselves from living a whole experience and a wholly embodied and a wholly joyful and connected experience, and how we don't have anyone to blame for that but ourselves. And I felt like it was a powerful exploration because we've all had different life experiences up until this point that are unique to us, that really bring us into this current moment to explore this topic of okay, you guys have defined yourselves, and we try not to overuse these labels, but you guys have defined yourselves as gay, and I define myself as straight, right? And it's okay, now, well, what does that do? What if we switch labels? What if we just explore the boundaries of what that label is? How do we show up? What energy do I show up with in my relationships and in my work and in my community? And it's just,
And where is this perceived idea of being in such different experiences, gay or straight, and where is the commonality of men
and I think in our stories, There's definitely, within the gay man experience, there is a fear and hesitation of connecting with straight men.
A lot of fear on both sides.
On both sides, for sure. And so if I'm just speaking to my experience, it's like, obviously I had woundings early on where I got sort of ousted from the straight boys that I hung out with. And so that gave me this innate fear of, number one, showing myself, like, I'm gay. Hey!
Right. Sharing your faggy parts, as you say.
Exactly, my faggy parts. He's allowed to say that because I'm honest.
I'm the only one.
And also,
which I love.
Yeah. And so it's like I've been hiding those parts of myself, but then it also gets in the way of me actually like connecting in a really authentic, deep way. So, like for me, this friendship that I'm experiencing with Trevor is really new, you know, and there have been openings that have led up to it for sure. Some really amazing men that have come into my life, but all in all, this is a new experience of opening myself up to being vulnerable and being seen, and then going beyond the fear that I'm going to be somehow rejected because, well, I'm gay, and, you know, what if he thinks I'm into him, or what if I am into him, you know, like all these different things that are at play. And so that's part of what we're talking about is, you know, realizing that we all have these kind of woundings that are keeping us in this closed state, protected, you know, we don't want to be real, we don't want to be vulnerable, and they just get in the way of, like you said, that joyful connection and just free living that we all want. You know, we all are desiring.
And the world needs
it
right
that.
now. Like with all the toxic things happening out in the world, like it's all going to come from women are doing deep work in this like more underground way. The men are super out front, and like we're all, even the straight men, we're all like hiding our faggy parts, so to speak. You know, like our like less hyper masculine parts, and like it's like for me this is about uncovering those, because from my own experience I've had a lot of like, oh shoot, I don't want to be judged as like less manly or less of like an alpha, and I've shunned a lot of my sensitivity and a lot of like, I think just what came with me naturally. So like being in relationship with you guys in this like more intimate space is really giving me permission to like shed all that shit. And you know, like I've worn a Speedo at the beach a bunch of times since hanging out with these guys, and
purple too,
and it's crazy. You know, I'm just like, what's the big deal?
Challenge yourself.
What's the fucking big deal? Like, what else? Like I'm afraid to sit in a room with these guys and explore this topic. To hell with that. Like, let's open it up and let's shake things up, and each person can define their own thing. But like, I've gained a big sense of personal freedom from this exploration together, and I think sharing it, that's why I want to share this, because it's like, man, we should just show this.
And so much of the fears are the same, you know, like I mean, every gay man has had to play with, you know, how feminine am I, how masculine am I? I've got this part of society saying like, to be a man you should be like this, and then I know myself as someone who's embodying kind of both energies.
Two-spirit.
And that's just such a, you know, drag. It's such a limit to feel there's only, you know, one way to be.
And it's very narrow.
Yeah, and I think men in general, gay, straight, whatever, bi, whatever, you know, whatever you are on the spectrum, it's a great time to be having a conversation and seeing, gosh, this doesn't serve me. I just want to feel into what I authentically am. And we're all still on that journey. I don't, you know, all the time where, you know, I'm just feeling like, wow, okay, something might come up where I feel like would feel like more of a feminine expression. And it's like, there's sometimes that judgment in the mind of, is that okay to express that?
Show it.
Yeah.
Or maybe we'll express it with each other.
Yeah, and that's okay. But
in other friend groups or on this, you know, a public setting like this. And so, it's a constant opening that's happening of basically letting go of fear. You know, like, what am I afraid of? Like, what am I? And why is having some feminine bad? Well, let's think about that.
It's what the world needs right now. Thank you for saying that. It's so what the world
Why are we
needs.
looking down on the feminine when that is like the divine goddess?
Yeah, which we've always seen as the real, like, the fear of gay. It's the fear of the feminine. So fear of feminine energy in men.
Which the world is suffering from now at a foundational level. We've rejected our regenerative aspects, our nurturing aspects, like the parts of our darkness, like the womb, like where the creation energy comes from, the birthing process. I mean, I could just go for freaking ever about how much I think the feminine's been rejected in all the different symbolic ways that shows up in our culture and around the world, and what that's done to the planet and our intergenerational just trauma that's made us all really locked up in fear. And I think that this, like, bringing forth more feminine energy, wearing Speedos at the beach. No, I mean, but just like exploring all the limitations of like hypermasculinity in everyone, gay, straight, female, children, and just seeing what comes from that. Just like, well, let's just talk about it. Nothing actually has to change. The energy just might be different. And then we might make different choices as a result. And the planet might start towards healing, which I think it is. Because
you see that in ourselves, right? Like when we let go of the fear and we allowed ourselves to have this open-hearted connection that we've been sharing, it's like really healing for all of us, you know, and for the people around us. Like they're noticing it, they're talking about it, they're feeling it, you know, we're feeling it. It's like, it's like this vortex of fun, of enjoyment, of freedom, and we could all use more of that, like you said. And it's not something that's like hard. It's not something that takes a lot of work. It just takes that vulnerability.
Yeah, sometimes it takes just being open-hearted, open-minded to one person. Like I think Skya and I both this last year in particular have just had really great connections and friendships with straight men.
Right, because you guys have been traveling.
Yeah, we've been traveling the West Coast for 6 months and just feeling like, wow, there is some really great stuff going on for the new man these days. And just so speaking to Trevor, just this friendship that's just been over the last
6 weeks.
6 weeks is all. Yeah,
it's crazy.
I feel like
we're all like,
just the open-heartedness, the open minds, the sharings that have gone on. I've just taken myself to this new level of I don't know, softening the walls I have had towards you know, straight men or masculine men, you know,
and ultimately to ourselves. Like to like this shunning of some part of ourselves. And like I feel like I watch myself interact with my straight male friends, and like I have so much love for these guys. And since I've started doing men's work in the last several years, my male community has just been like so solid, and I'm so grateful for that. And now, just in the last 6 weeks since being around you guys, I'm like, I find myself being so much more loving and expressive of.
I'll go ahead and share like part of my process of, you know, becoming such a close friend with you is, you know, really confronting that that fear of just the sort of sexual dynamic. It's like, obviously, he's a very handsome man, he's very good looking, you know. I mean, I think he's very attractive, but yet I know that what I really want is that heart connection, and I want that friendship, and I want that healing of all of the boys that were on my swim team, you know, that ousted me for being gay. Like, I want to be able to, like you said, love them, but like I know, like, you're not gay, so like that's not where the energy is going. So I can be very clear about that in myself, that even if I find you attractive, I don't have to, like, that doesn't have to be something that gets in the way.
It's not on the table.
It's not on the table. Right. It's like it doesn't have to get in the way of that heart connection. And the fact that we have been able to communicate that and like trust each other in that has allowed us to still connect very deeply without that sort of push that is part of the masculine. So it's like, yes, I'm talking about me being gay, but let's talk about how part of being a masculine is that, you know, tug of guardedness, and then also sort of that, you know, inserting yourself where maybe you shouldn't be, right? Rape. I mean, let's get real. Like that whole thing.
Being dominating.
Right, being dominating and all of that.
Pushy.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's not generally my nature, but at the same time, I can see how what I've been experiencing, it's an aspect of masculine energy. And so I think that's something worth looking at in the masculine is where are we, you know, inserting ourselves where we shouldn't be, instead of just being more in the state of allowing and trusting the dynamic and trusting, you know, what each player in that dynamic is desiring. So it's like, I know that you don't have a desire to have sex with me, so I can then drop that whatever thing that I have and just trust that we can have a connection that isn't about sex and it's not sexual in any way, you know. And yet it doesn't have to be like, oh, hey, dude, hey, yeah,
what's up, bro?
Hey.
Well, and you talking about this really brought up. Thank you. Brought up one of the things that just passed through my mind a minute ago, but I had forgotten it. It's just like the competition energy. The energy of competition comes from fear of that, fear of domination, fear of someone overstepping a bound and wronging you. And like, I feel like that's where it's like, well, if I get close to this guy who's gay, I might get in close, and then I might get hurt, because he might overstep my boundaries. And it's not like, that's not because he's gay. That's the same thing with, I think that we all experience that I experience with straight men too, that there's like this guardedness, and there's always been this level of like, well, I might need to compete here. I might need to like really watch myself, so I can't move in close, and I can't really experience that heart connection. And
it's kind of that, just that fear. I mean, I've always seen like a fear a straight man would have of a gay man just wanting to be closer than they're comfortable with. It's because you know yourself as a man, or just how men can be. You know, it can be, you know, sometimes overly aggressive, and it's confronting to be on the other side of that.
For a man,
and
for women.
Yeah, and I've seen for myself, you know, when I'm in that old pattern of fear towards straight men, or if I, you know, meet a new one, or just wondering, oh, will they reject me or like me, or will they be projecting on me that I want something from them that I don't? When I'm in that fear, it's more potentially going to trigger them to actually be in that fear themselves,
right? For it to become true.
Yeah, and we're just seeing more and more like, gosh, if I'm just totally open-hearted and not worrying about all that old stuff, then people are just going to respond to that open-heartedness and see, you know, a true friend.
And in that open-heartedness, being sensitive to your partners. So that's part of being a new man, is like just listening to the energy and listening to the dynamic with any partners, not just sexual partners, but any friendships, partners. Like, is this what they want in all relations? Is this what they want as well as what I want? Is it a match? Not, you know, like, well, I know what I want out of this, so I'm going to get it. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not dancing with someone. You know, that's overtaking someone. And that's been a big, just seeing that so clearly in so many ways, especially with the whole Me Too movement. It's like, that's a big part of healing this masculine, is realizing that we can all have what we want if we're really honoring what we want and what the other person that we're wanting to share with wants.
Shared needs.
Because if they're not a match and they don't want it, then you'll find someone else that is. You know, you don't need to try to force what you want on someone who doesn't want it. And that's just a very fundamental, you know, thing.
Yeah, professionally, relationally.
Yeah, on a level.
Like conversationally, it's in all the small things. So looking at where we're dominating in our energy, where we're taking from fear. Yeah, it's all from fear.
And in seeing that, you don't need to dominate. You just need to dance with things. You know, it just needs to be this partner dance through life with everything.
Well, and I think to be able to do that, I have to own it. My experience of it, like, I didn't have the ability to dance with life in the way that like this dexterity of like sensitivity to energy and skillfulness and awakeness and not being in fear. That not having that was it was because I wasn't listening to my own needs, and I wasn't charging up and using my feminine characteristics. I didn't know how to self-nurture at all. I literally thought like the old me, and I've said this to you guys, that the old me, like when Elisa and I first met, like, you know, I liked drinking beer sometimes, I liked going on hikes, I liked surfing, I liked making love, I liked, you know, just all the stuff that guys like, right? It's like, you know, it's like, it's a good life. But then I still was in this like very unconsciously, unbeknownst to me, in this very dominating, very fear-based, very striving energy.
But you don't have to see that when things are going good. You're like, hey, it's all working for me.
Yeah, it's all good. My life's good. I'm a good guy. And I was in a lot of shadow at the time that I couldn't recognize. So learning to getting through my own pain and discomfort that I've been through over the last several years has been like my medicine for me to start listening and learning to care for myself, and like take baths and go for slow walks and like do breath work and like nourish myself physically and relationally, and
being vulnerable,
right? And so softening into this men's work where it's like, okay, I'm really soften and allow myself to really fully be seen in all my different ways, you know, or like my anger or my shame. And, you know, shame is one that I think we could talk forever about. I think shame really shrink wraps us and keeps us from moving and exploring and self-nurturing.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I think self-care is like a huge, huge piece of, you know, this whole equation. And, yeah, so that's been huge for me. And it allows us to be able to do the dance.
And I think everything you just shared is such a great point of this really is about going in and learning how to love yourself and to nurture yourself, you know, because everything we're talking about, it's not really something that you can go and change other people and get them to do it. It's all a matter of having that sensitivity. And how do we do that? It's by paying attention to how we feel and responding accordingly with that nurturing, loving, feminine, if you will, energy. You know?
Well, and one of the things that just popped up that to balance all of this, like this recognition of like the suppression of feminine energies in our culture at large and in my own experience, is also like the boldness that's required to live in this true way, to live authentic to your own needs, and to really like just really embody your feminine essence. It's kind of like me walking down to the beach with a Speedo. Like I felt like I had to be bold to go do that in the beginning of like, okay, like, you know,
the new man, meaning
here
new.
Comes. and pasty white.
Yeah.
And there's a boldness to it, and that's the masculine characteristic.
Yeah.
Like I just pulled the warrior rune, and it's just like a straight arrow, and that's the masculine energy. That warrior of from a true place of like being like, this is right. I'm listening. Boom. Yeah. That's the masculine energy. It's not controlling, dominating. It's taking action from the right place, from groundedness. So,
and you all don't have to wear Speedos. But if it's something the thought of it like triggers fear in you, then hey, maybe you should try it.
I've talked about doing that for years.
Just to challenge yourself. And
Speedo therapy.
Like, wow,
call me.
What's it like to be seen a little more? Or seen in something tight, kind of like a woman gets seen all the time.
I can see his butt curves.
Oh my god, my thighs. It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's just like, then it brings up maybe some shame or whatever.
Totally.
You get to work through that.
Totally. I think we'll go into shame next time.
Yeah, it's a big topic.
There's so much. There's so many offshoots from this hub. But I really love you guys, and I really appreciate you so much, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to drop in.
It's a conversation just so perfectly manifested that we already were all wanting before we met, and just was perfect.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be many more.
Yes.
Especially because you guys are leaving the island.
Moving to the Big Island.
A couple islands over. And yeah, we definitely see ourselves sharing this more. And getting to co-create with friends like Trevor and Elisa. So, we invite everyone to be a part of that.
Yeah, so thank you for tuning in to our exploration here and all the unknown, all of our sharing therapy, which we're undertaking right here. It's really helpful. So I appreciate your support. I'm really grateful.
I do too. And I appreciate you.
Thank you
for just being that healing friend for me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you both as well. It's been huge for me. Yeah, thank you. Yay. Is there anything else?
Good.
Okay.
All right. Goodbye.
Thank you guys. Lots of love. Aloha.